people who are clamoring for workers to come into the country, are they going to pay these workers more? Are they going to do for these newly imported workers what they are clearly not prepared to do to keep Jamaicans at home? The call for Jamaica to import labor is getting louder and louder. So what does this mean for a country with such a high immigration rate? Let's talk about it. Now first, Jamaica has been importing labor for some time, but in relatively small amounts. The Ministry of Labor issues an average of 5,000 new work permits per year, with almost 40% going to Chinese nationals. What members of the private sector are calling for is a more deliberate government policy to bring in a larger number of workers, I don't know from where, from different countries, to plug supposed gaps in different industries. Justification for this is that the country supposedly lacks the required skills that these industries need at this time. And I think that this is a damning acknowledgement by members of the private sector of their failure to plan for the labor needs that their businesses would require. The Hard Trust NTA has trained thousands of Jamaicans in key industries and giving them certifications in much needed skills. And where do these workers go? Just like the teachers and nurses and other professionals, they emigrate. The University of the West Indies, the University of Technology, Northern Caribbean University, and other tertiary institutions have graduated every year thousands of people who have various skills that are required in different industries in Jamaica. And where do they go? They emigrate. Every year, Jamaica loses accountants, administrators, bankers, carpenters, engineers, medical doctors, lawyers, nurses, plumbers, teachers, truck drivers, and more to emigration. And both our politicians and the private sector knows this, yet neither group seems interested in doing anything to retain them. And study after study has shown that the main reason that people emigrate is for better remuneration, higher salaries, and better working conditions. So the same people who are clamoring for workers to come into the country, are they going to pay these workers more? Are they going to improve working conditions? Are they going to do for these newly imported workers what they are clearly not prepared to do to keep Jamaicans at home? Now, one of the proposals is to target return migration, that is, to encourage Jamaican professionals who are living and working overseas to come back to Jamaica with their skills and knowledge. The question is, are you willing to appropriately compensate such professionals for the value that they bring? Are you willing to do that? What guarantees can you give to returning Jamaicans that when you have sufficiently benefited from their skills and knowledge, that you won't then discard them for someone else? You see, our policemen, our teachers, our nurses, our tradesmen have been moving to other Caribbean islands. It's not just the United States, Canada, the UK. They have been going to other Caribbean islands where their skills are valued and where they are sufficiently compensated so that they can realize their personal economic dreams. And I know that immigrants are often blamed for this brain drain and are often seen as betraying the country's economic development. But I also disagree with anyone who feels that one's personal ambitions should not take precedence over a country that does not value you and does not value the contributions that you bring. It seems to me that forward-thinking business people would look at labor market trends, would develop the necessary forecasts for what their businesses would require in coming years, and would form partnerships with the training institutions to ensure that they have a ready caliber of labor to meet those demands. It would also make sense that if you have the research, if you have the data that shows what it takes to not only attract, but to retain workers in your industry, you would take the necessary steps to ensure that you are providing such incentives. I have a theory as to why that has not happened. I believe that Jamaica's business community, along with the political class, have over the years become accustomed to giving Jamaicans the bare minimum. And it pains them to have to adjust the way they do business in order to give Jamaicans just a little bit more that would make them more comfortable in the workplace. They see us as the working class, they see us as a laboring class, and in many Jamaican businesses, which are clearly run like modern day plantations, they do not want to provide improved wages and improved working conditions to Jamaicans. I find it so ironic that the debate is centering around the importation of labor rather than the education and training of the existing available workforce. In fact, it was just a few months ago that the PSOJ was calling for a serious commitment to the education and training of the labor force as an alternative to the importation of labor. Now, I'm just a layperson, but it seems to me that it would be cheaper to invest in the education and training and increase salaries and improve working conditions to ensure that you retain the people that you have. Our education institutions are among the best in the world. People with the certificates and the training that they have received from these institutions are working all over the world based on the fact that they have been trained in Jamaica. So why is the debate centered on the importation of labor and not the education and training of the existing labor force to meet the demands that you have? Why aren't members of the private sector working more closely with these institutions to ensure the specific occupational skills that they require, that they forecast will be needed in the coming years? In all this debate, we know that Jamaica's private sector has a very strong voice and they have the ears of our political leaders. They want what they want, and whichever party is in power, they usually get it. And such is the short-sightedness of politics and development in Jamaica. Because if our leaders, if our political and our economic class were sufficiently interested in developing a long-term plan for the labor market, a long-term plan for the development of so-called human capital in Jamaica, they would invest sufficiently in the training and skilling of the people that they need. But the bottom line is that that is not their goal for Jamaicans. And they would rather make that investment in another population of people than invest in the masses of the people to lift them up, to lift their standard of living, to lift them up economically. What they're saying to us is that before they do that, they would rather just bring in people. And I think that 62 years after independence, that is very telling.